On Grady Hill by Brent Noury. Read by Brent Noury. Chapter 13. Two Sides to the Coin. Young Grady, down from lofty perch. Are you here to make a deal? I'm here to offer you a deal, Winston. The deal was offered. It's what it is. The whole mountain. The plans have changed, Winston. What plans? I just sold Backside Farm to Gentry and Ford and bought up a chunk of Clark's. Anglos now own hospitality. I'm going to offer Haven the northeast mountainside. Arthur's going to have his library, a school in that chunk of Clark that runs down Haven Street. We're building a town, Mr. Charleston, a town called Utopia. I want to come here and offer you and the Charleston family a part of it. I could give you that chunk of hillside behind hospitality. Be good logging for the next 10 years for you. Utopia. Mr. Charleston stared at Samuel for a minute. Utopia. 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 You're still on about that, boy? Playing pretend in the sand? Not building any solid ground? Oh, Samuel Grady, you still don't get it. I want the mountain, all of it. Life isn't about these ridiculous salvations you're into, Sam. There's no depths to dive into, Samuel. This is imaginary. There's only power and powerless. There's only owning and being owned. You think you're going to chop that mountain up and share around to build your fancy name town? Where do you think you heard that word, utopia, boy? Jamontano. Nah, son. I remember it quite well. Because it was my introduction to Big Bill's son. I was at Arthur's bookstore dropping off some used books for that queer to put in his shelves. You children were gathering in that reading area, and Arthur was filling your heads with that peach blossom spring. I interrupted and said, Faraday, you teaching these kids some backwards Eastern Shangri-La? And little youngest Grady said, What's Shangri-La, Mr. Charleston? And I said, It's utopian nonsense. And you said, What's utopian? And I said, It's Greek for no place. Then, every time I saw you after that, up until your daddy died in the fire, you would say to me, Hey, Mr. Charleston, welcome to Shangri-La. Do you remember that now, Samuel? I do remember that now, Mr. Charleston. You never believed in my utopia. There's nothing to believe in, Samuel. There's only the ground underneath your feet. There's only what you control, not being controlled and having the power to take control. Utopia is a tiny thing. Everything is much bigger. Your utopia will be swallowed up by my surrounding lands. You think I want a piece of that hill abutting them Anglos? You've been doing a sorry thing for years welcoming them to town. You gonna let their kids mix with your kids? That what you gonna do in Fancy Boy's library? You're playing silly games, Samuel. In no time at all, your dreams of the farms and town working together will find hardship. Because there's really only one thing that drives everything, young Samuel: poverty. Now, I've been hearing for years that I'm some monster because I bought up some available land in town after the fire. Some folks have even gone so far as to accuse me behind my back of starting the fire. Now, I know a little bit about land, young Samuel, and I can tell you that if all you got for backside was a deal to sell hospitality to Anglo and that slice of Clark's by Gypsy Ontanos, then Gentry's a better businessman than I thought. He is a better businessman than you think. He agreed to move the railroad to run through Clark's and meet up down on Haven Street, where everyone will be greeted with "Welcome to Utopia." Even you, Mr. Charleston. Gentry moved my railroad? Our railroad. Boy, you really are Big Bill's son, aren't you? And my mama, too. Big Bill. Big Bill. The town's big hero. Drunk Big Bill. I'll tell you, boy, there's another story to that fire. One involving your daddy and all his drunk friends. Now, this was told to me by the marshal when they came asking questions about the fire. Seems that your daddy, Jem Ontano, Walt Gentry, and Andrew Clark Sr. had all been upstairs above Clark's Market, and they were all drinking that shine and playing cards. After your father and Jem left, Gentry passed out sick from the shine. Somehow that old Clark lit one of them case of moonshine on fire. Gentry's granddaughter there, Adelaide, went running into the building, as well as your dad. And you know the rest. People have been blaming me for something townsfolk did to themselves, with their own idle hands. The burnt down town was just exactly what it is for me. Opportunity. I know it must be hard to hear, Samuel, and your father may have died in some comic misadventure, a mishap, blunder, foolishness. Don't you think I've heard that story before, Mr. Charleston? Everyone knows Big Bill liked to drink, and Gentry was pissed drunk. You don't think them same lawmen came up to Hilltop to talk with the Gradys? I never blamed you for it, and I'm certainly in no control of town chatter. Knowing exactly what happened in that room ain't gonna change what happened after. Mr. Charleston, I came to offer you a chance to be part of our town, and what I'm going to tell everyone at the tavern now. You own all West Haven Street. Anyhow, you're going to be a big piece of it anyways. Maybe you don't like the people we got in our town. You like to hole up in here, and you live in your own nowhere, no place. I've been like that too before, everyone being different. But then they can't be the same, and I wouldn't want to force them to do what I tell them. They have themselves to be. I know you think people should have their feet a certain way on the ground, but what's underneath isn't what you think it is, Mr. Charleston. Samuel, what's underneath is rocks and dirt, and we all find out in due time. But in the meantime, I'll have as much of it for me and my next generation and grandkids. And when utopia turns to dystopia, I'll have it as well. I can buy your mountain up 100 times. No, you can't. You can buy up everything around us, Winston, and you can buy up the world. But you'll never buy Hardship Mountain. As long as Grady's live atop hillside, we'll be there to watch over Charleston's. And I want you to tell your grandchildren something. Tell them that Samuel Grady offered you a piece of the mountain and to be a part of our utopia. And you turned him down. I don't know, Winston. Maybe my dad isn't the hero he's supposed to be, but he taught me something about you. He told me you were the smartest man he'd ever met. And when I was heading off to school, he said, I want you to study real hard so you can be as smart as Winston Charleston. Because one day, you're going to meet a man like him, and you're going to have to defeat him. He said, you don't have to beat everyone all of the time, but you have to be ready to win when time matters most. I appreciate your time, Mr. Charleston. I've got to head to the tavern. I've got some good news to share with the whole town. People are waiting on me. And as Samuel turned and headed to the doorway, Winston Charleston said, Jim Anthony died this year, huh? Yeah. You know that's not his real name, right? He's a runaway. He's criminal. I know it's not his real name. And he's not a criminal. He told me his real name. Diego. Angel. Angel Diego. And he did something bad. He got revenge for something. But he's not a criminal. He killed a soldier back where he comes from. Changed his name when he got here. What do you think he want to know? He told me he killed one of the soldiers that was attacking his village. He ran away from town that night. Never saw what became of his family again. Is all you got to say, Mrs. Charleston's hurtful things? Let me ask you this. If you knew Jem was on the run, why didn't you turn him in? He was a spiritual man and a warrior, like a shaman and an Apache. Jem was good help up there for you Gradys, especially after the fire and your daddy passing. You think I'd let the love of my life suffer up there? Yes. Samuel, when I was younger than you are now, Big Bill Grady took the only dream I've ever had and carried her away up hilltop, rarely ever to be seen near my family's flatlands again, only to be tortured by her silhouette in front of the morning sun. Do you know what it is to have a dream crush, Samuel? Yes. I lost everything that mattered to your father when I was young, and I won't rest until that mountain is mine. Mr. Charleston, you lost everything to Big Bill Grady when you was young, And now you're an old man. And you've lost everything again to Big Bill's son. Welcome to Utopia. And with that, Samuel left the house and the estate and rode towards McCorrell Tavern, where we were waiting. Samuel and Winston would rarely ever exchange words again, except for the occasional in-town celebration where their paths might cross. And a few light-hearted pleasantries would be exchanged, or perhaps only a nod as time went on. And Mr. Charleston would buy up most of the surrounding lands and grow his holdings while building up and selling homes west of Haven Street. Some nights Sammy would wake up in a cold sweat with nightmares of Charleston's room, that, and of losing the mountain to Winston. End of chapter 13.